Welcome to Radio Amenti, embracing the eternal now, where minds and timelines merge, inspiring synchronicity, awakening potential, and making sense of change. All that you touch, you change. All that you change, changes you. The only lasting truth is change. God is change. This quote is from a book called Parable of the Sower, which came out in 1993 and was written by an author named Octavia E. Butler. Octavia Butler was a science fiction author who passed away in 2006. She was a multiple recipient of both the Hugo and Nebula Awards, and she became, in 1995, the first science fiction writer to receive a MacArthur Fellowship. In multiple interviews and essays, Butler explained her view of humanity as inherently flawed by an innate tendency towards hierarchical thinking, which leads to intolerance, violence, and if not checked, the ultimate destruction of our species. I first heard of this book in season 2 of the OA during a scene where the detective was in a bookstore trying to get kind of like intel on one of the characters, and the employee of the bookstore suggested that he buy Parable of the Sower as a gift for this person. Britt Marling is an incredible writer, and I've really loved her movies and work. And when I heard of it, I don't know, it kind of planted a seed in my mind. So I got the book and listened to it on Audible and pretty much devoured it within the course of a few weeks. So it felt really appropriate to begin this episode with this quote from Parable of the Sower. And throughout the episode, I'll be offering a few more quotes from Octavia Butler's work, just to kind of tie into the meta-narrative of the intention of this broadcast and just the idea of making sense of change. So a few weeks ago, not even a few weeks ago, a week ago, what is time? I had put out a post on my Instagram asking what you all think about leaving up podcast episodes that just don't really resonate anymore, for lack of a better word. The vast majority of you had said to just take them down. Some said to leave them up, and a few had said to leave them up, but also offer a disclaimer about why I'm taking them down. I decided, after reviewing your feedback, to just take them down. And candidly speaking, I tried recording this episode probably like 13 times this week. And between Zencaster crashing, my microphone not working, and just losing episodes that I spent, 40 minutes, 20 minutes, 15 minutes recording about my why, I kind of took that as a sign to just say, okay, you know what? I don't need to dig too deep into the why of taking them down, and to just say, hey, listen, we all reserve the right to change our mind. Timothy Leary had a really great quote about you're only as young as the last time you changed your mind. And I think part of the embracing of complexity and I guess really appreciating this journey is being able to fully embrace change and to not necessarily have to rationalize it or go deep into details of who, what, why, where, when, how, and just kind of leave it at that. Every great artist, every great creator, everyone can go through phases of life where we attract or repel certain types of personalities, and every friendship, connection, colleague, person that we have the chance to spend time with can be a great teacher. I value those who have taught me how to be by being embodied presence, and really like that cliche quote of being the change you want to see in the world. And I equally value those who have shown me how not to be. Both types of humans have offered great perspective on how to continually mine and refine and excavate the best version of myself. And, some of those experiences are private, some of those may have been public, and some that were previously on episodes that, I shared through this platform just felt like it was time to take them down. So I did. I don't want to say who, I don't want to say why. I just want to say that there's great lessons to be learned from recalibrating and moving forward. And, everything that we do doesn't necessarily have to be permanent. We each go through phases, we each go through changes. I look back to Liberation Frequency, which is my first podcast, and some of the episodes, and just oh man, so interesting how much has changed. And it's nice to kind of have these relics, right? To have these time capsules of who we were as we grow towards who we want to be. But stepping into adulthood, I've just been really trying my best to refine my skills of discernment. Today, being July 1st, I made a post on Instagram also about how I will be going on the journey of 52 weeks, which were explored in my work, Everyday a Mentee, which came out in December. So Everyday a Mentee is a 52-week guided journal, which is based off of the 7 Hermetic principles, the 3 alchemical principles, or Tria Prima in alchemy, and the 42 ideals of Ma'at, which were explored in a Mentee Oracle, Featherheart Deck and Guidebook. So today, being the 1st of July, being a Thursday relating to Jupiter and alchemy, which is all about dissolution and creation, feels like without spirit coding, as my husband calls it, or spiritual bypassing, why all those episodes didn't work out. It's kind of cool to just begin here, begin at the beginning, and to flow with that current of change. So that's all what this episode is about, is change. And yeah, so changing your mind, changing your perspective, changing what you choose to put out into the world. How do we do all that without kind of refining and looking deeper into mind? Thought, how thought may inform reality, whatever that gray area may be. The art of metaphor is a really brilliant tool to have an artistic lens to craft our reality with. And then, Everyday a Mentee, our week 1 of this journal is based off of the principle of mentalism from the Kabbalions, which is the all is mind, the universe is mental. So the passage begins by saying, the way you begin your day is a reflection of how you live your life. This week, let's reflect on the idea that the universe is a reflection of the mind and take notes on how our thoughts speak through our reality. So, taking note of how our thoughts speak through our reality. I think when we get clarity on the universe that we're creating with our mind as a fragment of the greater mind, we can find value in moments where, I don't want to say limiting belief, but whatever our ideas of what we deserve, how they echo through reality may attract instances that make us feel taken advantage of or devalued. And when those moments happen, it can be a real great opportunity to cultivate better discernment skills and create clear boundaries. And how do we do that? By looking into our thoughts and restructuring our thought patterns, right? So the 3 alchemical principles, or Tria Prima, in alchemy are sulfur, mercury, and salt. Sulfur relates to consciousness. Mercury relates to mind. Salt relates to structured thought. So what does it mean? Consciousness, mind, structured thought, all of these things that sound so similar, how different they can be and how they can actually help us think better thoughts and attract or repel better experiences. Well, we don't want to repel better experiences, but it would be nice to just kind of refine more, right? So consciousness, what is consciousness? Consciousness, as my friend Avery Hopkins, who is the founder of Kimia Art, said, consciousness is like the actuating cause. So what is Genesis point in our journey in this meat suit that we are, our thoughts are kind of trapped in as we float this rock through time and space, right? That's kind of the animating spirit, if you will. Then mind is kind of the communicator, right? How is the life force which flows through us actually communicating with and informing our living universe. Then how are those thoughts and that spark structuring into thoughts? So like our thought forms into form thoughts, which is like manifesting from mind to material. How do we look at all of these things and take note of them so that we can become better creators of our world, right? And it takes time to get clear. And what we get clear on in one instance may not necessarily like ripple through forever, but really looking into your heart to think about like, okay, who am I? And what do I want to put into the world? And how can I be the best version of myself in a way that is useful and treats others with compassion and doesn't feed confusion or, I don't want to say ego, or just this like need to kind of like elevate ourselves above others instead of finding ways to become better at relating. It's a process. And in order to rise from its own ashes, a phoenix must first burn. So, sometimes we have to burn the past to create something new, letting go of our ideas of what we're attached to. Again, you reserve the right to change your mind. You have the right to evolve. You have the right to be not limited by any boxes or attachments or labels or ideas of putting a period at the end of your life sentence by clinging to something that you made just because you spent a lot of time making it. I really love this one quote from Picasso, which I found myself like relating to a lot in high school as an artist who would draw and paint and create and just put my work in a closet because I didn't want to share it with the world. But Picasso said, and I'm paraphrasing here, but a true artist can create a work of art and then set it on fire and never look back. So if we look at, moments of our life or creations that we've created or relationships that may have been less than ideal, we kind of like burn them metaphorically and rise from those ashes. It helps us become better artists, creators, creatives, and helps us stay in a space of acceptance of the ever-changing nature of all things. Beware, at war or at peace, more people die of unenlightened self-interest than of any other disease. It's also important to acknowledge our own inherent hypocrisies and self-interest, but also be able to see that in others and identify it so we can grow from those who teach you how not to be, see where we have room to grow. I'm really glad that the other episodes I recorded about my why actually didn't work out, because I think I spent a lot of time kind of reflecting on like finger pointing and placing blame. And I don't want to name names or cause harm or I guess put out judgment to those that I shared time with. So instead, it's better to turn the gaze inward and see like, okay, how can I become better as a host, as a creator, as a conduit? And the way that I can do that is to just have a better idea of what kind of thoughts I'd like to inspire in those who listen and how I can curate, create, cultivate that through these transmissions. So it's acknowledging that like we're all walking contradictions. We're all like constantly like, if we can't look back at the past and cringe a little bit, then I don't know how much we're actually growing. I thank God for Facebook memories for allowing that, right? To be able to look at the past and to say like, oh boy, man, I've grown a lot since then. To like see it and laugh at it, or to examine where there is in your life that's still a little cringe and Marie Kondo your way out of it. I know the Marie Kondo method has been heavily memed and overused, but there is something to be said about like using your inner joy or muscle testing your way around your attachments. So like holding on to things that don't cause joy anymore may inform more discord in your life, but letting go with grace and thanking them for the presence they serve may actually like allow space for new. Getting rid of old podcast episodes, I really like kind of like Marie Kondoed it too. Like, does this spark joy? No. Does this spark cringe? Yes. Okay, thank it and let it go. It was an exercise that actually worked really well too when I moved from New Jersey to LA last summer and just kind of got rid of so many things that I was holding on to, old furniture, art, relics of the past. It was so hard to discern and let go and muscle test like why I'm holding on to this and what I have learned from it. But in the art of letting go, you're not ending anything, but instead you're creating space for something new. So there is a value in that. There is a value in that as a great exercise in creating space and seeing what emerges from that new space and not being afraid of it. So if you follow me on Instagram, you'd know I love a good angel meme, right? So this whole petition for like biblically accurate angel memes has been kind of viral on the internet for a little while. And one of the reasons why Natalie Miller and I decided to kind of like team up together to create a mentee and to kind of like refine the aesthetic of the Oracle card universe is we mutually bonded over a shared contempt over like the angel oracle cards that we were seeing, like so many of them had such like a interesting aesthetic, and they're all these like muscular, like Fabio looking white angels that just I don't know where they come from other than like a projection of like what we'd want them to be. But with a mentee, you're like, you know what, we want to cultivate a new aesthetic that's far away from this kind of like interesting angel universe that's been created. So in that same vein, it's really interesting because our ideas of what angels are or aren't have kind of been skewed because of, how they're portrayed in mainstream media, how they're portrayed in the Oracle deck universe. But if you dive deep into angelology and esoteric Christianity, angels and the celestial hierarchy are actually like so trippier beyond words. And this be not afraid angel meme viral internet sensation has been so fun to witness and to also tie back into this podcast about change and not being afraid, because again, it's like what we think things are and what they actually are vastly different, right? And then there's something even beyond that. So what we think, what they are, and what they may be or may become is a whole other thing. But even with angels as like divine messengers of God or whatever else, it's super, super interesting to look at. So in a future podcast episode, I plan to dive deeper into this angelology, which I cannot wait to share with you all. It will be loosely based off of the work of Dionysius, the Areopagite, who wrote the Celestial Hierarchy, which is the work, kind of like the classical work on angelology, which was written in Greek and dated to 5th century CE. It exerted great influence on scholasticism and treats at great length the hierarchies of angels. This work has been very influential on the development of Orthodox Christian theology. Thomas Aquinas follows the hierarchy in dividing the angels into 3 hierarchies, each of which contains 3 orders based on their proximity to God, corresponding to the 9 orders of angels recognized by Pope St. Gregory I. First order is seraphim, cherubim, and thrones. Second, dominions, virtues, and powers. Third, principalities, archangels, and angels. And I can assure you, in exploring these, okay, first of all, it's not going to be dogmatic by any means. So subtract any like Christian connotation and just look at it that like angels and many wisdom traditions have been a common thread. Angels appear in Islam, angels appear in Christianity, angels appear in many works that transcend kind of like our typical notion of reality. So whatever they are, whatever they may be, there's this interesting ultra-dimensional aspect to whatever they may be that's worth considering and looking into and changing your mind perhaps on how they the projection of them has been in kind of like the new age realm and seeing them for what they could be and I don't know, looking to them as archetypes that could be fascinating to explore deeper and embody. My friend Damien Eccles, who has been a guest on Radio Mentee, has some great work based off of angels that I would recommend looking into. So if you look up Damien Eccles or listen to our podcast, he has a modern day take on what angels are and how to work with them. And yeah, that's fascinating, especially as we look to find ways to kind of like help ourselves become better humans and change and make sense of it. So as we continue to make sense of change and move forward, as I've promised you on the last SoloCast episode that I did called Solve et Coagula, a lot of the episodes moving forward into the future will be changing gears a bit. Can't wait to share new episodes that are coming out with guests. I recently connected with my dear friend Mitch Horowitz, who is the author of Occult America and Miracle Club, and we're looking to book an episode together in the coming weeks. I'll be doing live podcasting in Austin, Texas on July 10th for an event with the Time Wheel Podcast Network at the Church of the Sacred Womb. I will be joined there by my friend Michael Phillip, who I previously did the last episode with, and who is the host of Third Eye Drops. If you haven't heard our episode, The Unidentified Flying Fractal Ouroboros of Wonder, please check it out. My friend Mike Brancatelli will also be there. He is the host of the Micadelic podcast, which is also a really great transmission. Definitely come if you're in Austin. I'd love to see you there. I'd love nothing more to meet and greet in person. I'm so happy that the world is opening up more. And I guess we'll see where that takes us. As I'm here in LA until then, and perhaps after, I've just been spending, again, the time that I've been here reflecting on clarity and change and how the current of change can take us places that we may not have previously expected, and to release into whatever may unfold. I came back to LA from Mexico on the 21st for an opportunity that was a once-in-a-lifetime chance to audition for a new Jim Henson production. TBD if I got it or not. I can't really share too much more about it other than that I feel really good about it. And it would be a lifelong dream to be a Muppet, and it'd be a cruel joke from the universe if it didn't work out. But either way, it was a surreal moment in my life to say that I've actually auditioned to be a Muppet with Jim Henson Studios. I haven't been able to go back to Mexico quite yet because of unforeseen circumstances, but I look forward to getting back to my husband and family there, and to actually having Adam Aronovich, my husband, on the podcast. But until then, it's just a patient waiting game. And it's been a real trip to be back here and to be reflecting on all things change. And I am so grateful to continue to evolve in the direction of, I don't know how to explain it, my true north, right? It's an ongoing process. And one of the things that, I was wanting to touch on this episode of change and evolving and finding and sticking to true north is the idea of what home means and how to kind of embody home within your heart, or like home is where the heart is, I guess. Being in LA, coming here and staying longer than I anticipated because of unforeseen circumstances has been really interesting. Right. So last year in prime quarantine, I was interviewed by Double Blind Magazine about a project that a bunch of friends and I had been doing. It was like a weekly Facebook Live series called Isolation Tank. And it was a really great outlet for us to talk about all the things that were on our mind, and a really great exercise in showing how even the best intentioned plans can fall apart because humanity is ultimately flawed, and we all have different ideas and opinions, and to agree to disagree can be easier said than done. But I digress. When Double Blind Magazine had interviewed me about Isolation Tank and about that time in quarantine, I talked about this concept, this word, this Welsh word called hyrath, which is a homesickness for something that may have never been, like a wistfulness, a nostalgia for something that may not even exist. And it's something I've been dancing with a lot, like this feeling of homesickness and what home is and where home resides, if it is in a location or if it's in a state of being, if it's in one person or if it's in a multitude of people. It's something interesting to kind of chew on. So, If you followed this journey, like I moved from New Jersey to LA almost a year ago. I started my cross country trip in August and signed my lease in September. And getting here in the middle of quarantine was a really interesting thing. I went through a lot of trauma. I found myself in a new place and a new location on the other side of the country. And within the first month of being there, I lost my beloved familiar, Ziggy. So it was a lot on top of, deciding that alcohol wouldn't be a part of my life anymore. It was just like major transition all happening at once. And in the last year or so that I've been here, I fell in love. I started splitting my time between LA and Mexico and got married and all the things that I talked about on a previous episode that we don't need to like rehash here. But I've found myself wrestling with homesickness and like a longing for something that may or may not exist. And what does it mean? And just really diving deep into an appreciation or not taking for granted how precious it is to find friends and community and those you can speak the same language of the ineffable with in your 30s and your 20s, whenever you find that connection or group or even if it's just one person that you can share that with, there's something so precious and rare about it. We spend our lives trying to find those we can relate to, and it's just as important to bond over the things that you like as much as the things that you don't like, right? And being in Mexico has been such a gift and such a privilege to be able to like have family there, have a small base there, and a second residence, but to not have community or to not have friends yet has been weird because I find myself really, really missing the connections that I've been so grateful to cultivate here being in LA. I recently rewatched Stand By Me, which is a great 90s movie with River Phoenix, Will Wheaton, Corey Feldman, and Jerry O'Connell, I think. I always want to say McConnell, but I think it's O'Connell. And it's a coming-of-age tale about this group of friends that sets out on a journey to find a dead body. And it's just this great storytelling. But the film ends with Richard Dreyfuss, who is the adult version of Will Wheaton, kind of ending his essay or book about the experience of saying how he never had any friends like he did when he was 12 years old. And Jesus Christ is anybody. And it like really hit me because some of us are so lucky to find our friends and our people when we are kids and to grow through life together, maintaining shared interest and shared perspective of the world. And inevitably or eventually just, being able to surf through all transitions and maintain connection. But sometimes, it's not necessarily shared interest or shared understanding of the world that connects us when we're young, but it's more of like being forced together through location or last name and then maintaining a relationship because of shared history or memory, but not necessarily because you have anything in common with. If you find friends that you can maintain for your life, that is such a gift. But if you find yourself growing into adulthood and realizing like, wow, it's kind of lonely to not be able to share thoughts and ideas with my peers that get it, that's a struggle. I remember going through that really heavily when I had my like quote unquote awakening or whatever you want to call it, when I had my breaking open of the head in 2013 and realizing how little I had in common with those who were in my life and losing a lot of friends and feeling isolated and lonely because I had such great ideas I wanted to discuss and no one to discuss them with. And it took, 7 years to really find that. And luckily, being in media, it's a really great tool to be able to continue to find that through the mycelial mind of the internet. But when you have it, it's such a precious gift. So to like start from square one, someplace new, been bringing up a lot of emotions for me and making me realize how grateful I am for LA and the lives that live here, the life that's been cultivated here, and for the opportunity that's been presented by this strange little state on the opposite side of the coast. My friend said something which I found really interesting about how the difference between East Coast and West Coast, how the East Coast isn't nice, but it's kind, and the West Coast is nice, but it isn't kind. And it's interesting because I see it and understand it, but it's been a blessing to find kindness on both coasts and to really just sink into what a precious, rare gift that is. So I share this in friendship, whether you found your community, whether you found your people, whether you found even just one friend that you can share that with, or if you haven't, if you're feeling lonely in the world or feeling like nobody gets it, or you don't have anyone that you can understand this journey with or through, I hope to offer a feeling of friendship through the platform and solidarity, but also to offer hope that anything is possible and the others exist out there in the world. And when you do find them, just, I don't know, the exercise of appreciation goes a really long way. And I'm grateful for it all. It's such a privilege to be able to split my time between two places for now. But I definitely have had a Dorothy moment of realizing that there's no place like home. And home for me feels like LA right now. And I really miss New York too, but I guess time will tell how it all unfolds. In the meantime, I'm just so grateful that the world is starting to open up more and that travel is a possibility. And I pray that the future only contains more expansion and that the pandemic will soon be a fever dream that we awake from and can focus on creating more community, creating better worlds, creating a better world so that whatever the shape of things to come may be, through climate change, through social change, through a world that really needs our care and nurturing and compassion, I pray that it's for the best possible outcome for us all, and that time will be kind to us, and that we, beyond the cliche of we're all in this together, something to like regurgitate and say, like, wearing masks and whatever else. I'm not an anti-vaxxer, but that narrative of we're all in this together, like, I think it's like really important to hold that as just generally for the future, is because we are all in this together. And now more than ever, as they say too, loving those that you love and creating boundaries of those who may be bringing you down, and discerning the difference between the two will allow for whatever mind you're building with to architect a better reality for you. So yeah, so there's that. Thanks for tuning in to this non-linear fractal of a conversation inspired by Octavia E. Butler, The Parable of the Sower, and prescient wisdom through the quotes that I've shared through this broadcast. Highly recommend her work. Parable of the Sower you can find anywhere. It's also a graphic novel, which would be really great. The OA that I reference is only 2 seasons, but if you want to binge something quick and kind of like fall in love with something and then release attachment to it, that's a great exercise. Once I get the episode structure in place, I will be doing an episode about the celestial hierarchy and biblically accurate angels based off of the work of Dionysus. And yeah, I'm excited to have future guests on, like my friend Mitch Horowitz and TBD, some of the other new guests I'm not going to announce until they're confirmed. But if you like what you've been hearing and want to hear more of it, please, it would mean the world to me if you take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe to Radio Amenti on iTunes. If you have suggestions for future guests, I'm always listening. Feel free to drop me a line. If you go to radioamenti.com. This episode, I am so grateful, was sponsored by Sheath Underwear and Ohana Kava Bar. Again, I don't want to get like too sponsory, but the truth is I love Sheath Underwear. Their bras and panties fit great and have been awesome. If you go to sheathunderwear.com and use the promo code AMENTI, you can get 10% off of your order. And again, I really love the kava too. It's a great plant ally. And if you go to ohanakavabar.com and use the code TIMEWHEEL, I believe you also get a discount there too. check out both if you want to have great undergarments and a great sense of well-being as you refine and divine through your mind. Ew. Whatever. It was cute. I'll keep it. Check out both. And yeah, rate, review, subscribe. Thanks for tuning in. I love you all. And yeah, happy July.